Oh my God, we're live. Oh my God, we're live.
You close?
Yeah, we're close. We're close to
Being
being live. And Gentlemen, how we doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you.
Love the energy.
I like that you asked.
Yeah, you're welcome. You know, it's important to ask how people are feeling, and it's even more important to give a genuine answer. So when somebody says, "Hey, how you doing?" you stop them and you tell them everything that's going on in your life.
I don't know. When I ask someone how you doing and they say I'm doing shitty, I'm like, just lie to me.
Just keep walking.
I really don't need you to like tell me why you're
a
so
courtesy.
mad. Like, just say I'm doing okay and move on.
I had a person at work. I said, "Have a good one." As they were leaving, they said, "Have a good what?"
That's a
I was
mistake.
like,
That's a mistake.
"It's like why? Why you gotta
Have a good what? A good day. Sorry to ruin it.
you choose? Have a good whatever you feel like you should have." Okay.
No. Have the day you deserve.
Exactly.
Have the day you
But
deserve.
what's up, boys?
when somebody walks by you, like that you don't know and you've never
Like on
seen
the
them
sidewalk.
before, like you're going through a restaurant and it's just like that small talk of like, "Hey, how you doing?"
I hate that.
What's your response?
I hate that. I wish
You
they would
hate
just,
that.
Well,
I fucking hate
no.
that.
I just think
Shut your mouth.
if you're walking by somebody and you don't know them and you both are headed somewhere, do not ask, "How's it going?" That's
Okay, so that's what I'm
It's
asking.
a loaded question.
What is your response?
I usually try and be like, "Oh, I'm doing good. How about yourself?" As I'm already fucking
Exactly.
a block away.
I do the same, and it's too mouthy.
It's right.
I'm sorry, how you doing? And you're still moving.
If it's in a situation like that, I have no shame. I will just say, "Doing good, thanks." I don't ask how they are because
I feel like a
It's not gonna
dick when
happen.
I do that.
Well, then don't ask me when you know we don't have time to stop.
I know.
You know?
But you disengage quicker.
yeah.
Because I always am like the guy like, "I'm doing well, how are you?" You know, and
Yeah.
it's like, but I'm walking this way, but I'm
I'm not stopping for you, but
half giving you yeah, exactly. I'm not stopping, but I will give you some of my attention.
Yeah, I always say, "Doing good, thanks." and then, that's their fault.
doing shitty. Fuck you. And keep walking.
I'll tell people, like, if I'm having a long day, I'll tell them, like, the wrong greetings. Like, someone could come in, like, if I'm at work, and they'll come in and be like, "Have a great day." And I'm like, "Sorry about that. Come on in." Like, because I forget where I am in the conversation. So how would you react if somebody did that?
So if I walked in and the
someone said,
first said, "Have a great day," I am having a great day. I don't know. I honestly don't
See ya.
think. Honestly, I have no idea how I'd approach it. I'm like, "Oh, I am having it." I literally would grab it, acknowledge it, and then force my way through
It's like
to
the
continue
handshake.
down what I need to do.
That's like they do,
Or it's that weird handshake. No. It's that one. Everybody's had this before. Where they get in there, and it just lingers.
And you just
and
like-
and you do the two like where you let go, but
they're like
they don't give up. They're just like
you're like
just keeps going
I never
And
break a
it's-
handshake.
until they break it.
Yeah, I swear to God.
What is that? Chad Omega Alpha?
I don't know
It
male?
is.
Shit.
it's power
And
play.
I always make a point to,
I'm not giving up until you
I
give
hate
up.
when people, if I'm going in for handshake and they try and grab my hand early, and then you end up with the little
the
flimsy.
fingers.
So like, if they do that to me, like they'll go in for the handshake, but grab the hand. Like,
Oh yeah.
I
I
always,
reset it.
so I don't reset it. I go like this, and I put my other hand on it to like reaffirm that. like,
That
I'm in
we're together in
control.
this
Yeah.
extrovert. That's an extrovert
No.
thing. You can't agree with me on this one. You can agree with me. That's an extrovert thing. I'm
don't-
controlling this situation. An introvert would dwindle down into nothing.
You misunderstand.
I don't think you. Yeah.
You guys,
We're not
So
getting
much.
into this.
No.
This
Exactly.
tired debate.
It's worn out.
All right.
It is.
because of you.
Me and Kyle are right. You're wrong.
And
I can't even
we
co-opt
accept
you
that.
into my side for even a objectively true statement that I made. That might be the first time I've ever shaken your hand
like in real life.
in real life. I'm just thinking about
We've
that.
given a
I'm
lot
like,
of hugs.
I
know if
don't know if I've ever said, "Hey, Kyle." How you doing?"
I shake your dad's hand all the time.
Yeah, but I'm not my dad.
Yeah, well, stop acting like it. I'm just kidding.
Be better. Be better. All right, we got some good stuff to discuss here tonight. First and foremost, I want to get into Rings of Power. Have you guys watched any of it all?
No.
Okay. Well, this is going to be a quick discussion then.
Go on.
Love to hear.
Go off, King.
I
off,
don't
King.
give a fuck what the online world is saying. I am loving this show.
I'm
I am
loving it.
loving it so much.
McDonald's.
It's so yeah, it is the McDonald's of the fast food of the culinary arts. Okay,
Barbecue sauce.
Barbecue.
I'm loving it, man, and it is ramping up and it's getting hot, man. They're preparing for a massive fight. The storylines are good. There's some storylines that you just don't care about as a fan. Like you're watching it and you're like, this is so weak compared to the other stuff that's going on. It's kind of like Game of Thrones in the sense that there's like 8 storylines happening at any one time, and
Some
there's
of
some
them
that you're
suck.
like, wow, these are awesome, and some of them are like, all right, let's get along
Brand.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And The Wanderer in the Wood. That's actually great parallel to what it's basically the Harfoot storyline that a lot of people don't like, which I think they're leading up to like a Gandalf review or a reveal because he's been kind of following the Harfoots around and he's like this wizard and doesn't know his place. But they just met Tom Bombadil, which is from the beloved character from the books.
No.
He's basically like Eru Ilúvatar, who's like God, but in like man form, but he's like his own thing. He's like older than
He's crazy.
he's older than everything that's old. I think is how they frame it in the books. Like he was there always. I think is how they define it. Like he was always there.
All I know is he's got like bird shit on his head.
Yeah, really?
In some art I saw of him, he had like
Was it AI generated?
no, it was like hand drawn. He's got like bird poop.
He's
Tom
like
Bombadil?
the happiest dude ever. He just is like constantly singing and anyway. So we see an introduction to him and he kind of is guiding away and that storyline is the weakest part of the whole thing because the pacing is just weird. Like all this other epic stuff is going on and then there's that. And it's just like, okay, let's get to it. Like, because Gandalf's finding himself. He doesn't know his name right now. He's trying to find out his name.
Because he crashed from a meteor, right?
Yeah, and he learned English in about 2 episodes. He went from not being able to say a word to says some of his favorite quotes. So he anyway, there's some really good stuff with like Sauron. They're forging the rings. They're doing all this stuff, and he's corrupted some of the elves and the dwarves, and you're seeing a lot of his power of influence. Just a great superpower to have. And
It is.
you're seeing like just the corruption and corrosive effect. They had this moment of like really great cinematography where Celebrimbor, the guy who's forging the rings, like the high elf that is like one of the great smiths, the elven smiths.
Does he look like Shadow of War?
No, actually, not at all.
Well,
The actor is doing a really great
that's
job.
disappointing.
But he's being like corrupted, and he hears like screams outside of his tower where he's like smithing these rings.
A power.
And
Title drop.
he and Sauron are like fighting back and forth, and he starts to open the window to see like what's going on outside. Because what actually is happening is there's this army that's on foot walking towards the perimeter of Eregion, which is this great elven land. And like the city's going crazy and things are falling apart. And Sauron closes the window and he's like, no, I have to see what's going on. I have to make sure everything's okay. And he goes and walks down the tower. And Sauron kind of just closes his eyes. And he shifts all of his reality. So he walks outside and elves are playing music and walking around and playing and having fun and laughing. And it's a beautiful sunny day and everything's at peace and harmony. And Sauron is like, I've told you everything is okay. And he's like, you see like how he's got the gift of the tongue, you know?
Yeah.
And then
But also the gift of fucking illusions.
yeah, oh yeah, he
Okay.
literally could. Reality is really what he has the ability to control, and he goes back. Celebrimbor goes back into his tower, and there's this scene where like the camera like pans around him, and it goes from this like beautiful day, and it's just Sauron standing in this courtyard, and it just shifts into shadow and lifts that veil back to reality, and it's like complete chaos, and the orcs are like right on the ridge, ready to come in. So it was like really cool. I love to see Charlie Vickers, who's playing Sauron, is doing a great job. The dwarven storyline is really, really fun to watch and see. Elrond, his character, Galadriel, still could use some improvements, but she's fine this season. But
Elrond
I'm
Hubbard.
enjoying,
Scientologist.
I'm enjoying the hell out of this season so much. And there's 2 episodes
More
left.
so than the first one? Or
I would say so because it's building up to an epic battle. There really wasn't. There was just a lot of light tension in season 1. This is building up to being like, oh, we're gonna see a Lord of the Rings style fight here, where it's an army of orcs fighting Sauron.
But orcs
Or
have
fighting
families now, right?
with Sauron. What?
Orcs have families now.
Yeah, that was like a 1-second meme. It wasn't. It was just a clip. Like they had a baby, but you don't know if it was a baby orc or a baby human. Like you'd have no idea. Like all you saw was what was presumably a female orc, which there's no way of really telling, holding a baby that was crying. So that's all that we saw. But that's a cool part of the storyline is Adar has joined, who is like an elf himself, is sort of like the leader of this army from Mordor, which is this orc army. But he doesn't call them orcs, he calls them Uruk. And the whole story, like that baby scene or whatever, the whole story is that they have evolved past Sauron's corruption. And like they're an elevated race. And they identify as Uruk, not orc.
But isn't this
And-
before?
What do you mean?
Like they evolved past Sauron's corruption, but isn't this before Lord of the Rings?
Well, so this is the Second Age. So Sauron and Morgoth have already happened and occurred.
Oh.
Like their first initial invasion where they were like tortured and created the orcs. So like this is a surviving group of orcs that Adar and the orcs killed Sauron in his original, like one of his original forms. They actually killed him, and then they have this whole sick scene where he comes back to life, and you see him kind of like go from this mass into like a being, like over hundreds of years. It's actually a really cool sequence of scenes. Anyway, so like this Uruk army is basically marching to fight and kill Sauron. But what's presumably going to happen is Sauron is going to eliminate Adar. And basically what I think is going to happen is he'll kill out Adar, and Adar literally raised and brought him an army, and now he'll turn around and he has an army of orcs at his disposal because orcs are easily afraid of power. I don't really understand like how he's going to assume authority over this entire
assuming control.
Uruk army, because they all like, it is such a brotherhood the way that they they had a death scene and like they buried one of their brothers, like, and they each of them have their own name, and they have like this whole culture of Uruk that they call, and it's really cool to see it kind of develop. And I think
Man,
a lot of the
they
people
fell far when they went to meat's back on the menu, boys.
yeah, well those are just straight orcs, right?
Those are Orkai.
Yeah, Urukai from
Are the
those are.
Was the one that said meat's back on the menu? I think that was one
I think
of the
no, I
fallen
think you're
elves
right. I think
that-
it's
I
Urukai,
think it was Orkai.
but those are from Isengard. Those are created from Isengard.
Yeah.
But this is like specific Adar.
So
and
this is like the
realm.
actual race.
This
of
is the
these-
yes, exactly. They were raised in Mordor, and he's built this army and culture around like love and like not love, but like the
Love and arts
respect.
and
There's a respect
peace
there,
and-
yeah, and like they're still driven by like evil. Like they're still trying to like their whole goal is to kill Sauron, so there's still like a deathly dark motivation. And you know,
They
Adar
have,
is
like, a
not the most
code?
benevolent dudes, but like no, they love and respect each other. Like there's a brotherhood there.
Are they closer to like fantasy orcs, like real, like
like from like
Dungeons and
Dungeons
Dragons?
and Dragons orcs.
I wouldn't
Where
know.
There's tribes and
I would say
they're normal.
I would say
people.
that this is like a no, definitely not.
They're like Krogans.
Definitely not.
They're still like closer
still
to how
orc.
they are in Lord of the Rings.
They're still orcs. They're like pretty low IQ, pretty like one track minded, but there's like the lieutenants have some character. I think they don't want to maybe blend too much into this because it's going to be interesting to see how Sauron corrupts them and become maybe they're drawn to the ring's power and that's how he does it. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see how he takes this army that is like so united in the fact that they're not orc and they're Uruk and they won't be threatened by Sauron anymore. And they're trying to kill him to ultimately what I think is going to happen, which is become his army. So it'll be interesting. They also introduced like some trolls, but these trolls are like on steroids. I think the first time we're going to see one is this next episode. So they're fucking the CGI on these looks so cool. It's not like your typical troll, like where it's like dumb boogers hanging out, has a very basic club.
Yeah.
Like he like walks into their camp and you've only had like one scene with them, but he's like, "Oh, where's Adar?" or something like that. He demands to speak with your leader, kind of thing. And it was like, okay, all right, we're gonna get some different flavors here of how this all works. So I'm enjoying it. I don't really like. I read the stuff online. I watch some of the stuff on YouTube from Nerd of the Rings, just for some like contextual background stuff. He does a really good job of in his episode breakdowns of not going crazy into like lore spoilers of like, hey, this character that you saw, yeah, he's actually going to be this. You know, like he avoids that. He does a really good breakdown. I think he's enjoying this season more than he did season 1, but there's still definitely been some low lights of season 2. Like episode 5 was the worst episode in my opinion. It was all about the Harfoots, and it just had nothing to do with like any of the good storylines that we like. It had everything to do with the poor storylines. And then in those storylines, there's just really badly written characters that are just dumb.
That's not enough to ruin the experience for you.
No, I remember I walked away from that episode going like, wow, that sucked. I can't wait to get back to the other stuff. It wasn't like, man, this show has fallen off. Like, I'm just like, oh, there's still some really awesome nuggets in this that I love to see. And a lot of the criticisms, they're just so unreal. I don't understand it because, like, people throw accusations like the orc baby, right? That goes around and becomes a meme. But then, like, if you actually look at, like, what Tolkien wrote, that was absolutely part of the lore, is that they had their own families and stuff like that. So it's not crazy to see depicted. It's just not what people are used to seeing, or they don't want to see that because Tolkien really plays on... Tolkien doesn't do anything like, I think we contrasted this once with like Dune, right? Dune is all the politics stuff, right?
Yeah.
The back and forth, you know, like really everything's in gray area. How do you feel about this? You're sort of constantly trying to figure out your position on things. Tolkien takes these ideas of like good and evil and pivots them off very clearly.
Good and evil.
Yes, and I think it has to do with a lot
Like,
of
I'm not
his
questioning
military stuff. But.
Gandalf.
Yeah, is he good? Like, no, it's like it's like lawful good. You know, like it's very distinct. Evil and good is very separated. So it's interesting. I'm having fun with it though. My wife is really enjoying it. So 2 episodes left. I'm excited. It's good stuff.
Dope.
I mean, you just do a little research, and it does show that Tolkien more than once talked about the fact that the original orcs had families. And
Yeah.
like,
So
it's
like
not
it was
it
just when they were
blew
corrupted,
up
they
because
become
Yeah.
mud people.
yeah. Go. I'm sorry. Go
I was
ahead.
just saying, is it just when they were corrupted they became mud people? Is that what the lore is?
Those orcs were created independently of like natural organic.
Magically. So
Yeah,
they're like...
those- yeah.
Tolkien never really had a good description of like what orcs are. Because like in the movies and in some of the stuff that he describes, like they were originally elves that are tortured into becoming orcs. And then in also the movies, they also say that like you see them like growing them. Like the Uruk-hai, like he's like harvesting them. So it's a little cloudy on like where they actually come from.
But those, based on like what has been written in the Silmarillion and what's in this new show, it's kind of come to be known that those were created almost like necromancy. They were created almost in a way that's independent of their natural nature.
Right.
So
they're like they're like spawns of the dark world, you know, like of these dark lords and
Grunt.
stuff. Yeah. Well, not really. Grunt was
He's just trying to find a way to bring Mass
Yeah,
back into
Yeah,
the conversation.
I'm trying to steer us.
So it's really good, and so I see that meme pop off, and it's funny because it's like, okay, but people just go right to shitting on like, oh my god, it's the woke this, and
It's
like
the woke.
it's like what
They're trying to wake us.
It's like, is it really that crazy to think that orcs would like? Do you really just want them to be like mindless meat sickles that just follow one dude
To be
like,
killed?
I like an interesting villain.
Yeah.
And I love this is one of my favorite storylines of these Uruks having personality. And then you've got to deal with that as a viewer of how you play their emotions and what they're feeling, the things that they've seen and gone through. To me, it's really, really interesting. The actor, Adar, which is a really great villain, he's the leader of the Uruks.
Is he a villain though?
He's not. Well, as of right now, he's not. But we'll see. Like he's not. He plays this gray area. It's very interesting. But he's an elf, very clearly an elf, and he was the actor. It's a new actor this season. The first season dude left to go do another project, and I was really bummed because that guy killed it.
Yeah.
The guy that they brought in has been doing a phenomenal job. He picked right back up, and he kept the character as identical to the original performance because he was one of the few shining spots of season 1 in a lot of people's mind. And this guy, whoever he is, has picked right back up and is killing it. So, very impressed with that performance. It's been a great show. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I've talked to a couple friends as well who have read the books and stuff, maybe not the Silmarillion, but and they're enjoying it too, and they're really looking forward to this battle coming up because it's gonna be something to watch. So there's still a lot of magic in the world. So you're seeing the corruption of the rings because the 2 elves have the rings and a dwarf has the ring. Well, there's 3 rings for the elves, and then there's 7 for the dwarves, and
You just
you're
do the whole opening monologue.
Yeah. You're starting to see,
9.
and he's trying to forge these last 9, and that's where they're at right now.
Celebrimbor.
Because Celebrimbor, Sauron has told him that like the reason why because the dwarves report back, the son of Durin, which is also Durin, comes and reports to Celebrimbor, and he's like, "Hey, my dad is corrupted by this ring. Like he is so greedy now, and that was never him." And he's putting it back on the ring maker. Like, what'd you do to those rings? How'd you fuck them up? And Celebrimbor's like, I didn't do anything. But Sauron twists it like he's told a fib 3 days earlier. And he's like, well, because you lied, there's now cast a shadow on the creation of those rings, whatever. So now and Celebrimbor buys it. And so now to make up for it, he has to embed more power or more whatever into the 9 rings for men to like make up and purify the 7 for dwarves. And so he's going like mad trying to find the whole, he's like forging different recipes for these rings, and he's going mad trying to do all this.
It's like a potion making sim.
Yeah.
It's
put the
effectively, yeah.
ingredients.
All this like metallurgy work that he's putting together, and he has like all these elven smiths helping him, and he's going crazy trying to get these 9 rings. And it's like he's gonna finish them, and basically the moment he strikes that last hammer blow, like the door to Aragon is gonna break down with fucking orc army there. It's gonna be insane to watch.
No.
So it's fun, man. I'm enjoying it. It's a good show. It's a good
stuff.
show. So
Sounds good.
So, in conclusion, don't just write it off because the
The internet
Lord of the
tells
Rings
you to.
community is kind of memeing on it.
stingy.
I think that's actually just kind of a vocal minority, though, because the numbers are still pulling pretty hard. It's still getting, like, pretty decent reviews.
Yeah, I've seen people
I really
saying
don't think it's...
that it's like the views count suck considering how much the show costs.
Yeah.
But I think those
maybe.
are just people that want it to fail, and those
Yeah.
people can go fuck themselves. So, my
True.
opinion.
And they should.
So, do we want to talk about Concord now?
Are you watching anything?
What?
Before we do that, are you watching anything?
No. I'm playing God of War Ragnarok again, and it's so fucking good. It's like a TV show.
It's like a TV show.
It
It's like-
is.
It's like a movie. It's like a miniseries on
It's like a
History
miniseries,
Channel.
On
Same-
history, yeah, it's real.
On the Vikings was on History Channel, so
But yeah, been playing through that.
Aliens.
I just watched the first episode of The Penguin.
Oh,
on HBO Max. Pretty damn good, actually.
It
Yeah?
looks good.
Does not feel like Batman at all, which I don't think I think that's the point. It feels like almost like a Martin Scorsese.
Is
type.
Batman even supposed to be in this like right away?
It's a sequel to the movie, meaning that it takes place after the movie, but it's not really like it's not a Batman show.
Yeah, right.
It's all about Penguin's rise
Cobblepot.
to power. Yeah. His name isn't Cobblepot. They changed it.
what is it?
It's just Oswald Cobb to make him more
Realistic.
American and less British, because the idea is he's like an Italian,
Rather than
not like a British royalty
Cobblepot.
or whatever, But first episode opened up with a pretty good bang, man. And dude, Colin Farrell, that guy, I never would have really put him on the pedestal of like amazing actors, but
He's
like
fucking
you cannot see him in this role like at all. It's
That's
crazy, and a
crazy.
lot of that is makeup for sure, but also a huge part of it is just how well he just turns into this character. So only one episode in, can't really talk about anything too much because they're not doing all at once release. It's like weekly. So I'll just keep an eye on it, see what happens. But so far, it's pretty good.
Damn.
Agatha All Along. Have you guys checked that out?
I
at all?
have not.
I have not.
I have not either.
People are saying that it's good though. Like they're saying that it's after the disappointment of Secret Invasion and what was the other show?
She-Hulk.
Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel.
Maybe it's Miss Marvel, but they're saying that this one is kind of like a more return to form because they used to be known for good TV shows, at least for a little bit. But I'll reserve judgment because the show
think I'm
itself didn't seem that great, if I'm being honest, from the trailers.
Yeah, it seemed like a weird twist on it after WandaVision, but I think I'm gonna watch it, all at once or maybe around Halloween.
It is
More
spooky.
fitting. Yeah, more fitting for like a Halloween type
Yeah.
setting. Yeah.
You see the not commercial trailer for Thunderbolts?
Did not.
I did. It just looks like a movie.
It looks fun to me.
Yeah.
I think I might be excited for it. It feels more
Cool.
like
Did you hear that?
He's back.
It's back.
He's back.
he's back. It feels more like I don't know. I think it's because I always am a sucker for those grounded level heroes, like kind of like street level heroes.
Yeah.
I like when things get fantastic and crazy, but I also like those grounded stories and the street level heroes and things of that nature.
For me, it's kind of a bummer that this is their next project right after
Deadpool.
Yeah, because that was so great.
Yeah.
But
No,
It's
the
so
next
hard
project's Captain and Falcon.
Yeah.
oh, well, that's even more sad. Because this Thunderbolts is
New
totally
World
new.
Order.
It's not going to have anything to do with anything. But yeah, Captain America.
New World Order.
The trailer didn't look bad to me.
The Captain America?
Yeah.
Mm,
I remember we watched it and I remember all three of us said it looks okay. You even said that.
yeah, it's just okay.
I think you're letting online opinions
Influence
you.
I'm just over the Captain America thing after watching the TV series. I didn't think.
It's because you don't like Falcon. I think that's your.
He doesn't like grounded level superheroes.
Yeah, he doesn't care about political espionage.
That's right.
Not even Spider-Man, the best superhero of all time. I heard.
Kyle could just say he doesn't like things, and it's like, okay. And I have to say, and it's like, well, you don't like it because of this. It's got to have some angle on it, huh?
Yeah, we gotta attack.
That's how
you.
we got to.
He's feeling a little personal
A
here.
little spicy.
Yeah.
Don't be a victim.
I am a victim. By both of you.
You're always
Getting
under
double
the,
dicked.
You're always under the impression that we're just out to
Double-dicked.
get you. When actually, I agree with you more often than not on this,
I need you to agree
and
with
that's
me
documented.
always. Not more often.
Always?
Well,
That's the only way.
that's not going to happen.
Conformists. That's the name of the new podcast.
Conformist.
Welcome to the KD Conformists.
We only have
How
one.
boring would it be if I was
opinion.
like,
I agree with every word you just said.
yeah, if you were
You-
like,
You
I
agree
agree.
with every-
I'm not excited for this, and I'll go, okay. Where's the discussion? Where's the?
No, it's gonna be a good. It's probably gonna be just a fine movie. I don't have any objections to it. It's just when I hear Captain America, I want it's just it's like it'll always be stained with. I don't know, not stained, but like correlated with the broader MCU. And that MCU right now is in a state of disarray, and this one really isn't going to do anything interesting with it. And they started to build it up, and then they took it all away, and I just don't know where this falls.
We're going to get Harrison Ford. Isn't that building up?
Is Harrison Ford a great actor? I'm sorry.
Wow.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think he fits a very specific role well.
And he plays that very specific role in every character he plays.
Yeah.
Which is okay. Indiana Jones.
Could have done without the Han Solo.
The president. Get off my plane. Or whatever he says.
I think the best thing he ever did was Indiana Jones, for sure. He was perfect for that. The Han Solo, even when I go back to watch, I don't know, man.
I really like.
I feel like you had to be.
You know
in
what
that
I think
era.
it is.
I think you had to be in that era.
You know what
really
I think it is.
it.
You brought up earlier how when I say something I don't agree with, we just move on. I think it's because the things that I don't like, you don't necessarily like love. You're just okay with. The things that you don't like are like the biggest like things I love most in this world.
You just stabbed my child.
Yeah, he's like I hate Spider-Man. And we're like,
so you have to rebuke that.
I just sat through a whole like thing about your
love
Rings of Power
montage.
rant.
Yeah.
And I don't even care to watch that show. I'm gonna be honest with you.
And if you came out with it, that's fucking the worst show I've ever seen. Yeah, maybe.
But it's because Rings of Power. It's not that I hate it. It's that I'm not.
You're just
one way or the other about it.
Yeah.
So I'm only defensive about things that mean something to me. Spider-Man, Star Wars.
Yep.
Like Harrison Ford movies.
That's a great segue into
Concord.
Because
because that game meant something to me.
You're the only one that commented on it in our group chat.
I think Kyle owns at least 3 copies of it.
Well, now nobody owns a copy of it. They totally refunded everyone.
If you have a physical copy.
Well, they say it's
they sold like 700 copies. I doubt anyone lined up at GameStop.
You can buy it on Amazon.
It's a $400 million
eBay,
loss. Something like that.
Yes. So how does that work, you think? Do you think like when... How does that work? Because GameStop collected the money. Do you think... This is such a niche question. But like, yeah, right? Did they pay GameStop for that
doesn't
copy?
lose the money on that. They probably buy that out or settle with GameStop for not to close them out.
There has to be, right? Because they have... Now GameStop inherits the liability because they have like a return policy.
All I know is Sony's
like if they
lawyers,
return that game, GameStop has to pay them, and it's like, well, wait
Give
a minute.
them the money back.
Sony's lawyers had a field day,
I'm
like
sure.
dealing with all of these companies.
Like, oh, nice. Lunch is on me, boys. Okay, let's go through. So I put on my journalistic hat. Not really.
Did you collect this or did you copy and paste this from somewhere?
I collected all this.
You typed all that out.
Yeah, why?
It looks like a photo.
Good job.
I don't think you typed out anything.
I spent 2 hours
give me your
today
hand.
prepping it, actually.
Yeah.
I watched a hand.
That was
Shake my hand.
manly. No, hold on. We got to do.
I've been sweating and I kind of have a stank, so don't lift my arms up too much. I got a
That's
brew going.
That's the real alpha sigma move. When you shake someone's hand, you pull their armpit to you.
Just take a whiff. Yeah.
And then you put the hand back.
We're friends now.
It's like when a dog smells another dog's ass.
Oh,
it's about determining who the real alpha is.
put it there, pal. Bend over and just... Yeah. Oh, you got that good kibble. My guys only give me the fucking grain shit. Oh, wow. Anyways, speaking of shit, Concord. Okay, so it's been reported. Yeah, I typed out. What makes you think that I didn't type this out? Like it was too organized?
I just read like a Kotaku article.
I tried to put as
out
much
of all
thought.
the journals, you
Yeah,
said
Jason Schreier.
Kotaku is the worst.
But
I cited-
Jason Schreier who works for Kotaku is like one of the best video game journalists.
It's pronounced Scryer.
Scryer. Well, you know who he's
I
talking about.
don't know.
He did the Anthem expose. He did the Cyberpunk expose. And pretty much anytime a game goes to shit, he's the one that gets all the dirt
He just gets
somehow.
scintillated.
Yeah.
Titillated.
But anyways, you're the next Jason Schreier.
Percolated. Yeah, well, I just basically stole content from 15 other
Percolated.
people and kind of surmised it here. From what I understand and have gathered, this is all founded on people who have either sources or directly from the source that worked on this project or are tied or linked to Sony themselves.
Okay.
So apparently, Firewalk was the studio that originally was building Concord, and they originally had spent $200 million on this project, and then when Sony got involved, they bought Firewalk, and then invested an additional $200 million.
So $400 million.
$400 million total is the estimated cost of this.
Okay.
And I've even heard rumblings that internally they actually were building out stuff. The cost is actually higher than that, which is unbelievable to me. We'll get into that, but this is that would make this the largest budgeted game Sony has ever participated in.
Okay.
Okay? Like bigger than Spider-Man, bigger than any other title that Sony owns. This game, which is kind of crazy because we all hadn't really heard of it. So at some point, like they didn't market the hell out of this thing. I think they just wanted to move on. But then they still did some weird things, which I'll get into in a minute, from a marketing standpoint. But that $400 million, from what we know, was just to get it to the minimum viable product, which is like, okay, this is serviceable and we can ship it. Not like, oh, this is going to take the world by storm.
No.
This is going to blow people's minds. Like, this game, we don't have to refund everybody's money. That was the kind of thinking. And so apparently the executive in charge of this project, I didn't write his name down because I think it's irrelevant, but it is out there.
It's relevant.
That he was quoted by saying he believed this to be a Star Wars level IP for PlayStation and that it was the future of PlayStation.
See, I was gonna say when I hear that, I just imagine that's what he told the board members. Like he I don't think he thought that.
You don't think this guy thought that?
I think he wanted them to think that.
Well, it gets worse. I have more evidence to support that this guy was just delusional.
Yeah.
And built a culture around delusion. Speaking of the marketing efforts, this is what's weird. So remember that Amazon show Secret Level, right?
Yeah.
That we were talking about?
Yeah.
They have like an episode that's going to be dedicated to Concord.
Yeah.
So that's the level of influence that they imagine this thing having. So like they invested in weird things like that because for those that don't know, the Secret Level show on Amazon, it's designed to basically just break into different lores and
It's an anthology series that stars
That's
a
a great
different
way to put
video
it.
game
Yes.
character thing each episode.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Love Death Robots team.
And Concord was included in that.
Yeah.
Like all things. So like you read through and you're like, oh, that's gonna be cool. And what the fuck is that? Like it really stands out like a sore thumb. So they were really kind of like pushing and positioning this thing to be like a heavy hitter.
Yeah, like the next Overwatch or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they really saw this as like this bell cow live service game where hundreds of thousands of people are playing every single day, buying all this microtransactions and like being this. It's sort of like Overwatch, CS:GO, 10-year type.
That
platform.
It would pull the weight of the other games in that series: God of War, Armored Core, Ghost of Tsushima, like
dominate them.
They thought this was going to be on the same level.
Yeah.
Which is crazy,
right?
To have those goals for this project. So you said I think that's what this guy was just pushing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, whether he not only pushed it, I truly believe he believed it because there's people on this project that have since then spoken out and used this exact terms, but there was hold on, let me find it. Toxic positivity around this project. And you could see this as evidenced by like some of the tweets. There was people on there like going out and tweeting that like anybody who was criticizing the game, like, how fucking dare you? There was one dude that went and freaked out and like was just calling a bunch of people talentless freaks. Just nonsensical shit. And basically the story is that I've kind of put together is this toxic positivity was really evidence there. If you had any criticism like, hey, I think this game system, this in-game system is not great. This thing kind of sucks. You would get like shelled and shunned from
blackballed to work on some bullshit.
You're like, oh, you're not on board. You're not with us. And this executive was like really pushing this game as being the next fucking
you're
thing.
Not with me. You are my enemy.
Which is kind of crazy that's where we stand in today's world. That you can't even criticize something you're working on. You just got to get on.
That
the
is definitely
boat
like
and row.
Way too far for sure. Like
way too far.
You have to have a balance on being passionate about your project, but also being able to adapt and mold to new ideas. But I do think that in order to be a project lead, to be a CEO, you do have to be that passionate about what you do, but you also have to figure out a way to be able to take constructive criticism and be open to adapting or changing.
Well, and what I find funny is like, you know, I'm comparing it to like the story of Anthem, right? And BioWare. And BioWare had a very similar thing going on of where they're like, oh, it's, you know, BioWare Magic, the game we usually finish games in the last few months. Like, that's what we do. That we're BioWare.
Just magic.
It's just magic. And like that, it was this toxic idea process of, well, guys, we only got a few months till the game comes out. And they're like, oh, don't worry, we'll get it.
Well, so I have a point on here that actually brings that up. I guess a lot of the original people working on this project come from Bungie. And basically, like, something that was quoted that people said all the time was that the team was too good to fail. So they had this, like, opinion of themselves that, like, probably exactly that. Like, well, it might not be great now, but we're going to get there. And our deadline's this, and we shit gold,
the
so
Titanic
we're chilling.
Of the gaming industry, like,
right?
God himself could not sink this ship.
Exactly.
God himself could not fail this game. Could not corrupt this IP.
And so they had to refund all of the people who purchased this game, which it wasn't that much, but that's still, you know, I don't know, probably $1 million worth of money.
So $400 million to make the game, plus compared to that, the extra $1 million on top is
right.
Like whatever. But.
And there was some leaks that I came across that showed some internal stuff that the PS Pro was supposed to actually be $500, but because of this, it's actually going to be $700.
To make up
$700 to make up for. They can't take as big of a loss on the PS Pro as maybe they were going to because of the loss of this massive.
Dude,
project.
Sony saw this happening. That's why the marketing got weird towards the end of it.
Yeah,
like Sony, I know Sony saw this product and was like, "This is not gonna."
Well.
And then the way they timed it, they're like, shit, we got to like, they released Astrobot. They tried to make these announcements. They did all these things to try and like cover it up too, soften the blow, which actually was pretty effective with a lot of what they did. But they knew this was going to happen.
And Concord's not an Astrobot.
Concord is not an Astrobot.
At all.
Because they
wanted to distance themselves.
Sony works much more closely with Team Asobi because it's such a brand character. That if they had any faith in Concord, he would have been in Astrobot. Not but Concord.
Well, something.
Would have been an Astrobot, but it isn't.
Still, the end result is $400 million that just disappears over the course of 8 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting is when you think about this, I mean, like, I think they commissioned this product. I think Firewalk Studios commissioned this project 8 years ago. That's 2016. That's Fortnite. Mm-hmm. That's fucking... Heart of Thorns, Guild Wars. Well, not really. Like, dude, that's Path of Fire, Guild Wars 2. Like, that's so. What else came out in 2016? Mr. Year, man.
Yeah, Kyle's the guy with the
2016?
dates.
Huh.
Usually you know off the top of your head.
Blood and Wine.
So, yeah, think about the world of gaming when Blood and Wine comes out.
Witcher was still very popular in 2016. Blood and Wine came out. 2016 was Uncharted 4. Like, you know, there was a lot of stuff coming around. That was also like Destiny Destiny 1 was wrapping up. Destiny 2 was starting to get teased in 2017. So like,
Well, I think this is, as much as I love kind of talking about, the evidence of what happened, but I think it's a much more interesting conversation to talk about like the fallout of this type of thing. I think we're going to start to actually see some movement. Like this year has been the last 2 or 3 years have been particularly interesting because before it was like everybody started figuring out that microtransaction monetization model. Right?
Yeah.
And they
Dude,
were
Overwatch.
like the machine.
Overwatch came out.
Overwatch came out in 2016. How did I
2016.
skip that?
See, so there you go. That probably inspired the project. But like all the machines are being built and it's like they're being perfected. Like how can we squeeze every dime out of these gamers? But in the last couple of years, it's also been interesting. We've seen things like Baldur's Gate 3 pop off, Pal World pop off.
Well, and you see all
Hell's Divers pop off.
all the live service games, big
Bombing.
flops.
That's what I'm saying.
Big, like,
You have this that's dead on arrival.
astronomical. Yeah.
How many other live service games that?
Suicide Squad.
There you go.
There's also there's other ones.
Oh God, there's so many. There's a graveyard full of them.
Concord, Radical Heights, The Day Before, Crucible, Babylon's Fall, Lawbreakers, Crossfire X, The Culling. Like these are like a lot of these. I've heard of a lot of these. Also, haven't even heard of some of these other ones because of how quickly they flopped. So that's all within like the last like year.
Yeah, and it's because like if you have, that's the thing. It's really interesting when you think about it. Like the world of gamers, like population of people, doesn't really like. It's not growing 20% per year, right? Like it's pretty stagnant. Like as people age out of it, new kids are coming into it. Like I would imagine the number of gamers is like 1 billion people, plus or minus, 20% or something like that. Whatever it is, like it's some static number of people, I would imagine. So if you have like all these IPs, right? You think of like live service games since the dawn of time, World of Warcraft, like all these RuneScape Online, all these things, Eve, all these things have millions of players still. All the live service games that have come out in the last 2 decades that people are playing, like Overwatch, less so, Fortnite, CS:GO, like these still have hundreds of thousands of people regularly playing these every day. And then like all these new ones, it's like it is like a zero-sum game because you're pulling from that same audience, right? And like if someone has decided, like I could speak about this personally, once you've kind of chosen your forever game, that's very sticky, right? You stay in that because the inertia to change is so much. Like the idea that like I would go and play like a new MMO and just dive head first, that sounds exhausting because it's like, okay, I've got to get 1,000 hours into it before I can start to have the things that pay off, I see those as being like less extreme of ideas or options, but you can't have everybody playing every game as forever games, right? Yeah. And like there's just not, I don't think that there's a market, and I think we're slowly finding that out. And I think that there's like, especially this year, but the last 2 years, there's been a shitload of studios that have gotten some bumps and bruises from flops that I think developers are going to start rethinking that whole model. And good riddance, to be honest.
Well, like, so I know, I get fucking live service. If it isn't a game, like, built around that system, because there are games that work, like you were saying, Fortnite, Overwatch, those work well with live service just because of the type of game it is, the content, it can be refreshed all the time. But we don't need a fucking single-player story that's live service. We don't need anything like that. And like the rumors
should seem a battle.
Oh God, could you imagine? The rumors on why like Dragon Age took so long is that it was going to be a live service, and then
they pivoted away. Huh?
They pivoted away, and
Smart move.
Yeah, real smart move because
we aren't even that far away. Like, remember when every single game announced was like, we're going to have NFTs? You remember that?
Yeah.
Now they don't even fucking blurb that because it died so quick. I think we're in a slower death for live service games, but I think it's gonna be the same kind of death.
Yeah,
The problem with that is as long as there's still games that make a shit ton of money on it, it's never going to completely die. People are always going to want a piece of that pie.
It will always have its place, and there will always be like a new game that comes in and breaks through and has success. You know, like Helldivers is technically a live service game. You know, but like it's an independent developer, so. But you can't. The fact that it is a live service game is not a marketing point to me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
100%.
and I feel like that is. The studios have somehow said that like that's somehow a value add for me, and that's not. It's not like I will decide whether or not I'm going to engage with that service. But to me, that's just it's not even a feature really. It just is a part of the game. Like. I have as the gamer have to make that decision whether or not to engage with that.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, like, your statement there reminded me of I was having a conversation with a friend, and we were talking about Grand Blue, the game I played a while ago. It's not live service. It feels like it should be, but it's not. And I mean,
you wished it was.
I kind of wish it was, and that's a weird thing. It's certain games, and in that point, that specific one right there, I would see live service being an extra feature that would be nice. But I find it weird that I think that, you know.
I think
but again, you could ship the game with being live service.
Yeah.
But it's not a selling point. Like, this is a live, so we're gonna have a battle pass at launch, and that's not interesting. That's
if the game's good.
Exactly. You got to have and I think that's what they're learning.
Yeah.
I think
the quality of the game has to come first. I don't think live
Absolutely.
service in itself is necessarily a negative thing. It's just how it's being implemented by these companies. They're treating it like it's its own genre, and and that itself is the selling point. But like if you have a solid game where it has a solid team of devs supporting it for 10 years, and they're constantly releasing things, and like I think there's a way to do that successfully, and there's a way to pull that off. But like it's got to make sense. Like no one asked for a Arkham Asylum live service game. No one asked for a lot of these things that they're trying to plug it into, and that's when it's like when you're going to lose people, because you're just making a product, and it's like the epitome of greed is what it is, and it shines through, and the people can see that, and they don't buy it.
Yeah.
They're not going to fall for it.
that's a really good point. Like, how many times have we seen this evolution in the market, right? WoW comes out. How many WoW copycats did we see? Like, everything being branded as MMO, open world, massive, the large, everything was being branded that. And it's like, none of them really stuck. A couple of them did, none of them really stuck. And then you see the same thing with, like, COD comes out. How many copycats of COD did we see?
Yeah.
And then
Which by extension was a copycat of Halo. But
exactly, yeah. So like, so some of them break through, and then it stagnates for years, and then we get a breakthrough like PUBG, which is like, oh, battle royales, boom. How many battle royales did we see every 5 minutes for
Or,
5 years, right?
When Skyrim launched, everything was Skyrim. It's like Skyrim with guns.
Dark Souls.
It's Skyrim.
That's a great
But
example.
the biggest offender is Souls-likes.
It's a Souls-like.
It's a Souls-like. It's a Souls-like, and it's like Dark Souls.
They co-opt these
Dark
terms,
Souls
yeah.
meets this. Dark Souls meets that.
Yeah,
It's
in their title trailer, Dark Souls meets this.
Dark
Yeah.
Souls. It's Dark Souls meets Cyberpunk.
So,
That's so wild, man.
do you guys think the next trend? Do you think it's going to be Baldur's Gate, or do you think it had that big of an impact, or no?
What is the trend?
Because Breath of the
from
Wild
there?
was the one before.
What trend do you get from Baldur's Gate?
Well, like the type of
Narrative-driven
game style.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of what permeates from that.
I
Like a
think
strategy?
Baldur's Gate 3 was a huge success, but I think the type of game it is, I think it's still just niche enough to not have that kind of impact on the gaming community.
Makes sense.
Like Souls-likes, the reason I think that happened is it's very, I don't want to say it's easy to develop a game like that, but the thought process behind it is easy. You know, like
well, the formula is simple
the
too.
formula
way
is
more
simple.
simple than Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
It's way more simple. You know, you could spend a lot of time in the lore, but you don't have to spend a lot of time in the narrative. You create hard bosses. And I think where Souls like succeed versus fail is how well boss design is done. But I think there has to be an element of easiness in the development part of it.
Yeah.
I think a game like
Baldur's
Baldur's
Gate
Gate,
is
it's too much of a task to even create a Baldur's Gate like. Because I mean
It's like
you
Baldur's
can't
Gate.
even claim to it's like Baldur's Gate. Like you would get called on your shit so quickly if you
Yeah.
said it's like Baldur's Gate, and it's not even remote. Like to even make it remotely close is it requires
Because the
too much
amount of
work.
audio lines, the amount of dialogue options,
thousands
like,
and
Yeah, they
thousands
said
and thousands
it launched
of
with
hours.
173 hours of cinematics. Like you can't. There's no replicating that. Maybe with AI, but like that's groundwork. That's heavy lifting right there. I think the story that permeates from Baldur's Gate and some of these other successes, I think we're gonna see a return to quality. Maybe that's the optimistic me, but like Baldur's Gate 3 at launch was successful. It was good. It worked, right? It was clean. They had like a couple patches or whatever, but like you're
Because they
always
took
gonna
their
have a patch.
time.
Yes.
They play tested it
Yep.
very frequently and often, and they weren't
It
afraid
was in
to.
beta for 3 years or something like
Yeah.
that, where you could play all of Act 1.
But they were dedicated enough to it where it didn't fall into that curse of never coming out of beta, like some other games we've seen.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you had enough faith in them to know that they were going to release the game. But they took their time and they weren't afraid to delay, and they didn't have this pressure. And also it was just, like I said, niche enough to where it didn't fall into the way Cyberpunk. It had such a huge, massive following that even if they released a game that was ready at launch, it wouldn't have been as bad as it was at launch, but it still would have been a disappointment because of how
The hype
much
outgrew.
hype. And Baldur's Gate, like, they never had to worry about that. Like, because it's a niche market, but also the players knew what they're getting because they allowed them to play throughout the whole process.
Yeah. They
Did it right.
We saw the battle, like the last two phases, I think we saw battle royales pop off, and that ended in around 2022, I would say, 2023. Like battle royales, like you don't even hear that word anymore. That's like
Yeah.
totally dead. I think live service, we're in the live service era, and I think that's dying off quickly. I don't know what the next big regime is.
You said quality. Do you think? What about? I don't think so. But this is an idea. The past games that blew up, the good ones, were all like not cinematic, but single player experiences. The big ones. Do you think that's what they're going to take away, and then we're just going to have a bunch of like?
Yeah, I mean, like if live service dies, that's like the logical feeding. Like, hey, let's get a return to story. Let's get a return to form. Like, and just build these really great, iconic brands. You know, and storylines. That to me makes
they're
total
finding
sense.
a good balance between good story, and good gameplay. We're seeing a lot of. It used to be just Souls-like, but now it's kind of moving away from that a little bit. We're seeing a lot of like good third-person action RPGs is what we're seeing.
Black Myth,
Black Myth Wukong,
which made buco bucks.
yeah.
So that
Popped
one
off big time. Still has on Steam 111,000 people playing it right now, and it peaked at almost 500,000 today.
Elden
Today
Ring
alone.
did a really good job of resetting the Souls-like. You know, like it gave everyone else a new thing to
and also
copy
innovating on it.
and innovating on what was already existing. I mean, they're the OGs of that genre, so that would make sense that they're the ones to also push it forward. And they also, to be fair, Elden Ring, they did a really good job on building on Breath of the Wild, but putting it in a Souls-like atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there's ways that it can go, but right now I think single player experiences is where it's at.
The
but also
market's headed.
indie is still
Indies
huge.
popping off. Yeah. It'll be, I mean, it's impossible to predict the future, so I don't know where it's going to actually end up going, but I think there's lessons to be learned, and I think a $400 million lesson hurts. That's gonna move and shift some stuff. So, you know, would you rather do 4 projects at $100 million and 2 of them suck and 2 of them are good, you know, versus 1 project at $400 million? I think we're gonna see a lot less of the AAA, you know, mega titles and maybe more of the, hey, let's just make something kind of fun and it could be its own thing.
I think Sony's gonna have, like, if I can picture in my head, I think Sony, they're gonna, whoever the CEO or whoever the decision maker, board members,
Mr. Sony.
Mr. Sony himself, they're gonna be pissed, right? They obviously got to be, and they're just gonna. We probably won't see another live service game from them for a long time. They're gonna be like, you know who makes us money? Our single player games.
Yeah,
They are stubborn
Fuck
like
these
that.
online games. Yeah,
Anytime they failed on something, they're not generally the type of people to double down.
double down, right?
They
And move
usually, they're like,
on. Pick it up and learn.
they pick up with what works.
Yeah.
It's like that the Steve Jobs movie where they're talking about Steve Jobs is talking with the CEO of Apple about the Apple II versus, you know, the only thing that's ever made money versus just moving on and innovating. They're more of the just work with what works rather than trying to innovate. So I can easily see them just like, well, let's just stick to what we do best. And
Yeah.
double down on God of War, double down
Yeah.
on Spider-Man, double down on, you know, Ghosts of
known
Tsushima.
stuff.
And that's actually kind of what we saw with a lot of like what they've been announcing and
the
stuff.
state of play.
Yeah, the state of play. They're
Well, I think too, it's like information moves so fast anymore. I mean, it was always fast, but like now, I it's so hard. If you have a bad, that's why I was saying like return to quality. If you have a bad launch, especially on a single player game, you're fucked. Realistically, you're totally fucked because. Boy, that's a mountain to climb if you even want to do that all. And kudos to CD Projekt Red because they spent. What do you think they had to put into that game? An extra $100 million. So they developed it for another 2 years.
Yeah,
That's a shitload of money that
I
they had
think
to put
the
into that
difference
game.
is they did that all in house.
To-
That's the only thing that they have. And yes, they could have been like, let's abandon this, go back to Witcher because we know that has its community. But they knew that their reputation was at risk. The difference is Sony as a whole, they have so many other things. They're not going to give a fuck about.
Right.
If that ever happens to any of their products, they don't care.
well,
They're like, cut this thing off and let's do something better.
yeah.
And to that point, like Cyberpunk, I think still holds records for most pre-orders. I don't think that's
If
been
it
changed.
doesn't, it's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like they already made their money, so they had the ability to do it. And like kudos to them for their reputation of saying, nope, we're gonna deliver.
Yeah.
Right? Versus Sony was like, Concord, we ain't gonna deliver that.
Well,
fucking
yeah.
you're getting
Well,
a refund. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And what would you guys say better? Would you say what Sony did or what BioWare did of just let's just
Abandon it and
leave
move
it
on.
dead limp?
No, that's the worst model. I would rather the second best would be getting a refund.
Yeah.
The best
Is
is
Projekt Red.
Cyberpunk.
it gets fixed.
But
Those are almost tied because like waiting 2 years also sucks, but also it got
depends
better
on the-
like they got better. They got way better really quickly.
To be
I would
honest,
say
it wasn't the game that people had in their minds, but it was playable 3 months after launch.
Yeah.
right.
It
so
maybe wasn't the game that was promised, but it was playable 3 months after launch.
Right.
And then 2 years later is when it
was
was more
perfect.
of what they promised. Well, it was well, you know, it's on my list of top 10 favorite games
Yeah.
of all time, but it was still a $60 worth game 3 months after launch. There was
Yes.
a ton of content in there, and it wasn't like it was unplayable for 2 years and then all of a sudden it was perfect. It wasn't
Yeah.
like that.
So,
But they
so timing
doubled
is
down.
definitely like you got to fix it, but you can't take like imagine if they didn't have that patch until 2 years. Like that
Yeah,
ain't gonna fucking
that would
fly.
not
No,
work.
people would have moved on.
Exactly. You gotta be moving quick, and so yeah.
Well,
I know.
and specifically with Cyberpunk, even like it was, I think, a week before it was playable. So because at first it wasn't. It would crash all the time.
Yeah.
There was bugs, and then within that week, then they optimized it, and you had no more crashes. So at least
It was still rough though.
Yeah.
I would say it wasn't until the new year.
Yeah.
Which now that I think about it, only
Because it got
released-
pushed back to December 10th,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Now that I
Yeah.
think about it, so it was really only about a
So
month.
two, 3 weeks.
It was really about a month. I would say like mid-January is when it was like, okay, you could actually get through it without it completely.
Which is kind of almost pushing it, to be honest, because
Yeah.
you did pay for that. You did pay
Yeah.
for that product. And if you're talking about you can't, because I remember, was it you that you would crash like every 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty game breaking.
Yeah. So I mean,
pretty bad.
I had to stop playing because I played at
Same.
launch and I crashed so often that it completely sucked any amount of fun I was having out of it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
tough.
I had to tell myself, I was like, I need to stop playing because if I keep
Yeah.
crashing, I'm going to resent Cyberpunk. I was like, so far I'm enjoying the little bits I get to play, but it's going to piss me off. And I was
Yeah.
like, I need to just wait for them to fix this.
So they fix it. It's a fantastic example of exactly what we're talking about. They fixed it. I wish it would have been fixed maybe a little quicker because, like, to me, like, I don't want to make any excuse, like, for the love of games, anything. I think from like a legal standpoint, you owe a responsibility to people who you sold a product and then you failed to ship that product. Now it's software. I mean, how many times do you get an update in any software, not gaming related, just maybe shit at work that breaks 15 things. So like this is not unique to the games industry. So, but they own the problem and they fixed it. It's just
I think the way Sony did it, I mean, from a business standpoint, is probably the actual best way to save your reputation.
could you
is just
imagine
give the refunds.
That would have killed CG Projekt Red.
But CD Projekt Red didn't have the capacity to do that.
No.
You know, and so they did what they could, and it was, how do we save our reputation? We fix what people bought, and it may not be the easiest or quickest thing to do, but it's like CD Projekt Red wasn't Sony. They didn't have the ability to just say, "Here you go."
Refund.
There's no way they could do that.
They sold 8 million pre-order copies.
Yeah. So what is that times 65?
65, dude. That is unbelievable.
65 times 8 million. We're looking at 520 million before the game even came out.
Oh boy.
You know,
We were
$500 million.
no.
Which that floats you the next 2 years to continue to
fix
make
the
it
game.
right.
They took that reputational hit, but they recovered it enough to where good faith isn't lost for their next project.
Versus you look at
They did as best
BioWare.
they could.
BioWare, the majority of the internet has no faith in them. In this next game. Kyle.
Pre Mass Effect Andromeda, BioWare was my favorite gaming studio. And I can forgive one mistake, one transgression, as we've seen in this podcast.
Yeah.
But 2 in a row, it's hard for me to take that. And I don't have any faith in BioWare anymore. They have to earn that from me.
Well,
they don't care about me.
that's
but
a
they have to
different-
earn that from me.
That's a different example because they came out with the game and then never fixed it really, right?
Yeah. There was 2 games that just
What was wrong with it? Was it buggy or was it just a shit game?
Andromeda.
It was buggy.
Andromeda's a different story.
Yeah.
It was buggy and boring.
Yeah.
See, so I think for you, like,
I can forgive the
I
bugs
don't think
if
like
the
let's,
story's good.
Yeah, I'll say this: if CD Projekt Red comes out with Witcher 4 or whatever their next project is, and it totally same exact thing happens. It's the worst product at launch. I think you would still absolutely have faith in it because they've restored that faith for you because they worked it back. It doesn't stay bad. Now if it sucked and then also the game was bad, like it was just boring, which I don't think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that said Cyberpunk is objectively a bad game.
Yeah.
Now I think you'd have to look in some dark corners of the internet to find somebody talking about that. I think that's the difference, right?
If CD Projekt Red, I think that is a huge part of the difference. Is if CD Projekt Red gave it the Mass Effect Andromeda treatment or Anthem treatment, and they just said, "Oh shit, this is bad," move on.
Yeah.
That is also a huge part of the reason why I lost faith in BioWare was the way they handled that as well. CD Projekt Red took that on the chin. Yes, they had some missteps. They made some bad choices, but overall, overwhelmingly, they handled it in the best way they possibly could.
And they release a
it worked.
fucking badass expansion.
Well, yeah. I mean, how bad?
The fact that you doubled down and you released an expansion anyways, and it's amazing, and it got nominated for Game of the Year as an expansion, like that should tell you all you need to know.
And think about what a shame it would have been to come out with that game, and you know what you know now about how good it ended up being in the expansion.
And you never got it.
And they decided to refund everyone. You would be robbed of that.
Yeah.
A passion project that let's add the human back into it. Like a passion project that studio and hundreds of other developers poured their lives into for years. Like that would be sad. And I feel bad for the same people at Concord. Now they probably, if you smelled the shit, you probably should have got out early. But it's a shame. Somebody worked for fucking years on that, and it didn't even see the light of day. You can't even show it off.
Speaking of CD Projekt Red's, some of the missteps they made during the process, which there weren't many, but they did make some missteps in the way Sony handles things. Back when they were like,
they banned it on their store.
When CD Projekt Red was like, if you want a refund, you'll have to get it through the store that you bought it on. And Sony was like, fuck you, and took the game off there completely. They didn't give a shit. Sony is straight up from Suits. Like, when they're like, money is
nothing. Keep score.
They're like, this isn't to value how much money is. This is how we keep score. That's Sony. That's what they do.
Yeah. I do. I totally forgot about that. But that's honestly, if I was at Sony, I would make the same decision. You're not gonna. That's what you're gonna say about your shit product? Nope. I'm not listening to this. If I'm having to process all these refunds, no way.
They had to basically,
resubmit.
They had to resubmit to Sony. Sony had to approve the game.
I remember that they had to
and it was like
when they did patch stuff, they had to submit stuff. I remember that whole.
It was almost like a year
before they added
it back to the.
Holy shit!
Yeah, they still, if you already own the game, they allowed it to be updated and patched, but they weren't selling it.
Wow.
Yeah. Just crazy. You could still buy physical copies if it was used.
Yeah.
But they took it off the PlayStation Store, which they don't make any money off of used, hard copies. So.
Yeah.
Well,
speaking of Sony though, State of Play. We didn't talk about that. Was today.
I haven't. I mean, what other than what you guys were talking about? I didn't watch it.
So the main things was Monster Hunter Wild.
Wild's 2025 coming out. Yeah.
There's Ghost of Utah.
Set 300 years in the future.
300 years in the future. Female protagonist. Looks pretty good. Yote.
Something.
Yotai. Looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like Ghost of Tsushima.
Didn't that win Game of the Year?
Yeah.
So
there's guns now. Well, they show a gun at the end.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember
Did
that.
Ghost of Tsushima win Game of the Year?
I
don't think it did.
No.
I think it was up against.
It was up against some.
Was it up against the Zelda
Breath of the Wild?
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild probably won.
No, it wasn't Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild came out in 2017.
God of War.
Tsushima.
Spider-Man.
Something. One of them.
Elden
Ring.
And then they announced, this is all the stuff on my radar. Billy, add anything you want to, but they announced a remaster of Soul Reaver: Legacy of Kain, which was an old game that I used to play all the time and I really enjoyed, but I'm a little disappointed it's a remaster and not a remake because it is old. We're talking I think it was PS2, PS1 era.
Damn.
So I'm not that excited about it because I'm like, it's still gonna play like ass, I guess. So
wow.
Last of Us Part 2.
Won
that year.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm pretty sure we talked about that on this podcast.
I think we did.
Yeah.
4 years ago.
So
we had that same reaction every time. What?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say Ghost was my main takeaway from it, and I think it is funny that do you think Assassin's Creed? Do you think they're
they've had a lot of misses lately?
Well, and they had the female Japanese ninja, and then now we have Ghosts, and they're probably going to do it better.
Oh, they will. Sucker Punch is better at gameplay.
No, Assassin's Creed got too formulaic. So
Well, Ubisoft in general has had a lot of misses lately. It all started with Watch Dogs
2.
2. Well, really, the first Watch Dogs that goes back like 10 years now. But Ubisoft has had some tough times for sure. They've had games that have been decent, but they haven't really had any like, this game is fucking amazing. For
You
a
need to buy
long-ass
this.
time. Watch Dogs 1, 2, and Legion. All three of those were like disappointing. Star Wars, the new one that just came out. Outlaws. I'll admit, I was excited for this one. And
Did you buy it?
No.
Oh.
But I basically played it because I watched live streams of
Ah.
it. and
Good man.
it's bad. Does not look good. It doesn't look that fun. And so I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but Ubisoft is not really someone that I'd be too,
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm kind of over Ubisoft. Like, I might get the Assassin's Creed if it goes on sale, just because the other ones I've had fun with, not comparatively to like God of War or Ghost of Tsushima, where it's like I have an amazing time. With Assassin's Creed, I'm like,
it's all right.
it's all right. I'm getting some enjoyment, killing time.
Last time I played a Ubisoft game where I was like, man, that game was awesome, was probably Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
And it was.
It was.
Kenny, Baldur's Gate 3 did in fact win Game of the Year, but I think the year we're talking about, it was Last of Us Part 2 that took it. Which
We're
year
talking
was
about
that?
2020.
Yeah, 2020, right? Baldur's Gate was 2022? And then Elden Ring
Baldur's
was
Gate
2021?
3 was 2023. Baldur's Gate 3 just came out last year.
2023.
What was 2022? Was 2022 Elden Ring?
Yes.
And then 2021 was Breath? No. You said 2017.
Game
The
of the
fuck
Year.
was? Oh, was it?
It Takes Two.
I was gonna say it was the.
It Takes Two.
Yeah, it was that the.
Which
playful
that game,
one. That's so
it
much
may
fun.
not be as good as
That is
some
a game
other
of the
game
year.
of the year.
No, it's a great game.
but-
That is a fun game.
It was good. It was really good. I don't know if I would put it on the level of like, Ghost of Tsushima
Yeah.
or you know what I mean, but like I still think it earned its spot.
100%. Like they're just different games.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time. There's a bit.
I got a
million
different
types
kind of enjoyment out
styles
of that, and I
games.
think it's because I played it, with my wife, and it depends on. It's like the memories you build with it, like, and it's a fun platformer.
What kind of games can't win Game of the Year? Do you think? Like, could Hearthstone, like a really good card game, could that win Game of the Year?
It'd be tough.
No.
Could a competitive did CS:GO win Game of the Year? I mean, I'm looking at it right now. The people.
Because the thing is,
24-hour peak for CS:GO is 1.4 million people.
the thing with
Did
that,
that ever win Game of the Year?
I don't think so, because we have modern, like Valorant. If
And that didn't
that
win, right?
Valorant would have won, if it was, like, we have modern equivalents of these games like Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap didn't win,
Right.
and Marvel Snap was
But it's like,
huge.
what's the difference? When I look at that, 1.4 million people playing CS Counter-Strike 2 today.
I think
That
it's-
is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's a different crowd of players. Like the people that play Counter-Strike 2,
Don't give a shit about the Game Awards.
Yeah.
So they don't vote.
because that's all they're into, Counter-Strike 2. Like, that's it. And I'm sure doesn't Counter-Strike always win like best ongoing game, where like it's always
It's its own category.
got
its
but
own-
But why that game would never? I don't know. Like if CS, well, they just came out with. Is it Counter Strike 2? That's the one that just came out, right? Was it this year? When did Counter Strike 2 come out?
I don't know. Did we miss it? You know what I think? What genre of games would have a hard time?
Yeah, okay. So it came out in September
A year ago.
2023.
You know what games I think would have genre of games would have a hard time winning Game of the Year, and they've had some contenders, but like horror games.
ooh.
I think they'd have a hard time winning Game of the Year.
Well, like, as a horror game, would you consider Resident Evil Village a horror
I would
game?
say
'Cause that was
that's-
on there.
It's
That
got
was
horror
nominated.
elements, but I would almost consider that more action.
So you think of like Dead Space?
I'm thinking of like Outlast and like pure
Well,
horror.
in order to win, I think you would have to include like Dead Space. and
That's what I
Resident
mean,
Evil.
though.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
because I don't think
if
like
a horror
Outlast,
game wins, then it's going to be like an action horror. It's
Mhm.
not going to be like a true horror game.
which I think a part of the problem with that is not a lot of games can get it right.
Resident Evil 4, did that get a nomination? I think it did.
Yeah,
The remake.
I think it did.
Ooh, I don't know actually.
I think Resident Evil 4 remake got a nomination.
Or 2 remake.
It's either 2 or 4.
Mhm.
But I don't know if even an action horror done well, like Dead Space or the Resident Evil games, I don't know if they might get a lot of buzz, but I don't know if they would ever win.
If we had more of that type of game, I definitely think so.
I feel like the line is when you can kind of group around the IP. In the sense of like Hearthstone, right? There's millions of people who play Hearthstone. There's millions of people who watch Hearthstone content, and you know it's definitely impactful. But like you don't go and hang out with friends and like, oh man, I've been playing Hearthstone. It's so much fun. And then like you sit there and you talk about like your deck or your cards. Maybe you do. I don't know. But I don't feel like that's like a phenomenon. Versus like when you guys get together and you talk about, I don't know, Cyberpunk or Ghost of Tsushima, whatever. Ghost of Tsushima, whatever the fuck
It's
it
a
is.
cooking simulator.
I've been saying it all night. I can't say it now. Tsushima?
Tsushima.
Yeah.
The T's silent.
You guys can like join in like talking about that character and that impact or that mission was great. Like it's more of like a cultural thing versus like Hearthstone. You're like, oh, it's my favorite card. I have this really cool strategy where I
like
do
Magic
this.
the
Like,
Gathering.
yeah, but I just think like there has to be a narrative part for Game of the Year.
I feel like there's
At
a lot of
some level.
talking, or like when Resident Evil 8 came out, we did a lot of discussion around that because that game was a lot of fun. It was good. But I think the difference is we weren't really like, you don't talk to somebody about Resident Evil 8 or Village and you're not like, man, this character was just so well written. It's like Chris is a meme. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
a lot of the
He
characters
punched a rock.
yeah,
It's
like,
great.
It's not
So-
like you like talk about like, wow, the anguish and heartache and the
So Kenny just confirms that basically Resident Evil 4 and Alan Wake were both nominated.
Oh yeah,
No,
Alan
Alan
Wake.
Wake. Alan
I
Wake.
forgot
That's a
about
horror,
Alan Wake,
right?
Yeah.
You would definitely put that in that genre. Did that win? That didn't win.
No, it didn't
But
win.
it was like
It won,
It was up there. It was like second place.
It was
in
up
voting
against
or
Baldur's
something.
Gate, so
And it won something else. It won like best.
best character return or something. I
Yeah.
don't know, something.
Well, like they performed. I remember they performed at the Game Awards.
That
Did
game
it-
is fucking creepy.
The music.
That game.
And now it has an expansion. That's another thing that happened.
DLC at the State of Play.
Yep.
I think it's coming out later this year.
Anything else at State of Play you can think of?
Just Dragon Age Veilguard.
Veilguard.
Not a game that I'm gonna pick up particularly, but it looks good. It's very Dragon Age. It's very.
Yeah.
It's their formula. That's what they're doing.
It's not a day one. Definitely not a pre-order game for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I like what I see after launch and I get a feel from the reviewers, I might buy it. You know, maybe a week or so after if it does well. But I'm gonna let other people play test it for me.
I think
Before
I'm of the same mind as Kyle. Maybe we were talking beforehand. I'm a little more hopeful than him of like that the murmurs I've been hearing sound good. So I'm still wary enough to not buy it right off the bat, but I would say I'm hopeful. Like I'm definitely going to watch it. It's not like I'm like, totally ignoring it. I want to see. I'm curious now. Before these hands-on, I didn't give a shit about it. Like I was like, I don't even care.
I don't give a fuck.
I don't give a fuck. But yeah, now that the hands-on previews came out and stuff like that, I'm definitely curious enough, which is
With
good.
how much these games cost, I love the additional transparency.
Well,
like to really see and buy in.
and I
like,
think-
okay, I'm gonna get something worth.
I think BioWare learned that with especially Anthem, but I feel like Anthem they were trying to cover up anyways. Because Anthem, the only they had the review block on it, right?
Oh God.
And then the beta was
Bad sign.
Review
Wasn't it-
block equals money block.
yeah, was like a week before
Yeah.
was the
Oh,
only
God.
playable beta, and it was bad. And they're like, "Don't worry, this is an old build." Old build. It was the current game.
Jesus.
Well, even CD Projekt Red did some some shady things at their launch too, which is why it got
We've gone gold.
overwhelmingly positive reviews. Like it was like 10s across the board.
Yep.
Because they only let reviewers play certain sections
Like
of the
a
game.
curated section.
Yeah, and it was only on the PC build. And then they had to like sign a contract that any footage you release is not your gameplay footage; it's footage that we already have. To the point where actually, when IGN reviewed the DLC, Phantom Liberty, they even mentioned they're like, none of the footage you see here is not like it's not footage that wasn't in the trailers or promotional footage because they wouldn't let us use our own. They only gave us footage to use, and we think that's dishonest, blah, blah, blah. They had this whole disclaimer, and they still gave it a really good score, but they were like, it changed reviewers, like that whole debacle. And so I don't think that anyone's ever going to trust that type of thing again.
Yeah. So that's why it's nice to hear, like with Dragon Age, that they got
Vanguard.
pretty much all of Act 1.
Well, I also think that's kind of interesting, like with digital being a thing anymore, and with everybody seeing additional download speeds, what is the benefit other than maybe like a new skin of pre-ordering games anymore? Like if I have
preload.
fiber, that's what I was saying. So I have fiber. I can download pretty much any game within 15
Okay,
minutes.
but some people don't have fiber. Some
I
people
understand that
live
that's
in
not,
the
but, like,
boonies and have 50
I have
megabits
no
per second.
reason.
Then move. Be better. Get good.
Thank you, Kyle. I need that toxicity in my life.
Money?
Go earn it, you bum.
Money. Like
Money.
from
I need my Parks
Parks
and
and
Rec.
Yeah. I need my money, Dad.
money, please. Money.
Money, please.
But yeah, like if I could, that's what I did with Elden Ring. I didn't pre-order Elden Ring. I waited to see what the launch was, and then everyone
And then
was,
you still played it before us.
yeah, everyone
Yeah.
was jizzing in their pants in like the first 3 or 4 hours, and I'm like, okay, I'll play it. Boom,
Yeah.
downloaded, booted up, and was rocking and rolling.
Which, I mean, now even if I have to download a game, it takes a few hours. Like, it's not like, I know I said I was out in the boonies and it's still decently fast to where it just takes a few hours.
God forbid you have to wait till the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not-
like,
that's
You're still within the window of like you could see what the people in New Zealand or other parts of the world are saying about it immediately. Like, oh, it's been great. Then you could download. You're still in the window of you could technically still pre-order it, and then because you could have it downloaded
there's
before
games
it's even
I've done
ready.
that too.
Yeah,
before.
so they're reviewing it live of like, oh, it's been great. You start downloading it, and then you have to wait to play for the
I especially
time
do
to
that
open
like
up.
the review
funny.
embargoes, because a lot of those will lift when the New
Mm-hmm.
Zealand and that's usually about the time. Like, I don't remember what game I did that to last, but there has been games where it's like once I see the reviews and all of them are good, I'm like,
I'll do
"All
it.
I'll do it.
Well, where can people find us? Oh shit!
He
I
just
just-
came.
Thanks for asking me that.
I was gonna
question.
You
try
know
and-
how I know?
You
It
felt
hit my leg.
Oh shit!
Shot across.
Through your jeans. It
Yeah,
blew a hole in
it
your
was-
jeans.
It was powerful, to say the least.
He has an impact fracture on one of his
Damn.
bones.
I'm bleeding.
Yeah.
It pierced a hole through me.
BB fight.
But anyways, they can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, any major podcast listening platform, as well as right here, live on YouTube every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time,
Beautiful.
where we stream and we like to chat with people and talk to strangers and get in vans with strangers.
for those that
take
join.
free candy and,
Getting vans.
get in vans, take free
Wow.
candy.
That's more of a Dylan thing. I don't know.
Let's not. You don't speak for us.
Yeah,
all right? That's
okay.
pretty creepy. Man.
I don't know. That's all of our, right?
Mm-hmm.
know.
Well, folks, remember, with the good KD, you get the dub.
Bye.